All right, Farm 208. This is week 3, Mondays, DC. Got some questions on this, and it is weight dependent dosing. So anytime you're doing weight, there's going to be 4 steps. All right, step A, you're going to take the pounds and you're going to divide by 2.2, and that's going to give you kilograms. Very good. So once you get the kilograms, you're going to go to step B. Wait, let me go through this first. All right. So I'm going to do the examples on the board. I'm not going to do your example. All right. I'm just going to do the ones on the board. So write notes if you need to, because this is yesterday, so it's not open anymore. So once you find the kilograms, you're going to multiply that kilograms by the order, whatever the order is per kilogram per day, right? So that's going to give you the daily amount, right? So sometimes we give the daily amount all at once. Sometimes we give it to them in divided doses. So you got to watch this first, and then I'm going to do these examples. You go back and do yours, right? And then once you get the daily amount, sometimes you give that to them all at once. Sometimes you give that to them in divided doses. So if it says to give it to them in divided doses, you're going to divide that daily amount by the number of doses. And that's going to give you your per dose amount.
What is dose exactly?
Dose is how many times you give the med. That one time you give the med. So if you're to give a drug BID, how many doses are there?
Twice.
So how many times did you give them the drug? Twice. So how many doses are there? 2. If you give a drug every 8 hours, how many doses are there? 3, because you give it to them how many times?
Every 8.
Yeah, doses is a way of saying how many times you give it to them. That's what it means. Right? So the daily amount, sometimes if you give it to them all at once, you kill them. So we might have to split it up so it doesn't poison them. So that's what we mean by divided doses. So once you take the daily amount divided by the doses, it gives you how much you're going to give per dose. And then the last step for us is an order and supply problem. Order over your supply times your amount, if there's any, right, will give you the amount of supply you're going to deliver. Right? So write this down. You never write notes. Make sure you write this down. We're going to go over these examples on the board. You go back and do your own. So if you keep on reading out your order, you're going to get lost, right? So all right, so for this example, the patient's weight is 165 pounds. The order states, so this is different from yours. Make sure you pay attention and write the order that's on the board so you don't get lost. So in this example, the patient is 165 pounds. The order is 10 milligrams of drug per kilogram of body weight per day. And we're going to give it all in one dose. Right? So that's what this means. Here's the patient's weight. This is how much you give them per kilogram, and we're going to give it to them all at once. So we're going to do steps A, B, C, and D for this example, right? And then we're going to do it for question 2 as well. The supply here is 50 milligrams per ml. So for math 2 and 3, you already know how to do order and supply problem. All right, so let's do this problem for our first example.
Order and supply. Order divided by supply and times what?
The amount, if there is an amount.
Okay.
All right, so this should be nothing new. You said you watched the video. Do you take notes while you watch the video? No, you got to be actively learning, because if you don't write it down, you're not going to remember. You're going to remember 10% of what you hear. At least it's about 50% of what you write down. All right, step A. What is step A?
Divide by 2.2. And how much was the power?
you take their pounds,
65.
you divide by 2.2, and that's going to give you their kilos. So take out your calculator. There's calculators at the end of the desk. 165 divided by 2.2 gives you 75 kilos. So we finished the first step. We found the patient's weight in kilos. What is the second step? Did you get 75? 75 kilos? Do 165 divided by 2.2. Alright, so it's 75 kilos. Now in step B, you're going to take the body weight and you're going to multiply by the order per kilogram. So how much drug do we give per kilogram of body weight? So in this order, you're going to give 10 milligrams. So this is going to give you the daily amount, right? So here above, we did step A. We found the patient's body weight in kilos. Once you get that answer, that's going to be the starting point for step B. We multiply by the order for step B. In this case, it's 10 milligrams. And now that gave us our daily amount. So that's going to be our starting point for step C. So we need 750 milligrams per day. So 750 milligrams per day, we're going to divide it by the number of doses. This is yesterday's DC. We're going over it. So for step C, we need to divide by doses. Since we're only going to give one dose a day, all this drug all at once, our daily amount and our per dose amount will be the same. The last step, we're going to use our supply. So for this one, it's just going to be order over the supply. So in step C, you found your per dose amount. That is your order per dose. So you found your O, you need to divide that by your supply, which is given in your question here. So step D, our order is 750 milligrams per dose, and our supply comes 50 milligrams. So how much drug per day? 750. How much drug per dose? Well, it's the same, 750. It's only one dose. And then order over supply, order is 750. The amount of the supply is 50 milligrams per ml. So let's punch that in. 750 divided by 50, and you need 15 mLs per dose. So let's review this one. So the 4 steps for weight dependent dosing. If you're given pounds, step A, convert to kilos by dividing by 2.2. Once you get the weight in kilos, step B, the weight's going to be your starting point. Multiply that by the amount of drug per kilogram. So in this case, the amount of drug per kilogram is 10. That'll give us our daily amount. Sometimes we'll give it all at once. Sometimes we'll divide it in multiple doses. So in our example here, it's just one dose. So in step C, you take the daily amount divided by the number of doses in a day, and that will give you the amount of drug per dose to give. That is also your order per dose. And from last week, you figured order over supply times the amount will give you the amount of supply per dose. So for number 1, our patient weighed 165 pounds. divide by 2.2, we ended up with 75 kilos. That's going to be our starting point for step B. Now that we found their weight in kilos, we multiply by the order per kilogram. In this case, it is 10. And that will give you your daily amount. We may or may not give it all at once. So that's going to be our starting point for step C. In this example, it's only 1 dose per day, so you divide by the number of doses. We arrived at 750 milligrams per dose. So step C will give you your per dose amount, which is your order. You take your order, divide it by your supply. In this case, the supply is 50 milligrams. So above here is the video. So just download it and play the slideshow. All right, let's do number 2 as an example. So same thing, we're gonna do steps A, B, C, and D. So for A, our first task is to convert the body weight into kilos by dividing by 2.2. All right, so we got 330 divided by 2.2. That gives us 150 kilos. So that's going to be our starting point for step B. So for B, we take the body weight and we're going to multiply by the order per kilogram. So here we have 3 milligrams per kilogram per day. So just multiply it by the amount of drug ordered per kilogram per day. So this will give you your daily amount. So the patient will require 450 milligrams per day, but we're not going to give it to them all at once. We're going to give it to them in 2 divided doses. So just what it tells you to do, divide that by 2 doses. And that's going to give you your per dose amount, which is 225 milligrams. Last step, order over supply times the amount if there's any. But for us, it's just order over supply. 225 milligrams divided by our supply, which is 1,000. So we should end up with 0.23 mLs. All right, so 150 is good. We got that in A. The daily amount, we got 450. The per dose amount, 2.25. And the amount of drug per dose, 0.23 mLs. Here they got 0.22. Let's submit. Let's see what we got. So that was yesterday's DC. So I'll go ahead and I'll post this so you guys can review it. Let's go on to today's DC.